Beaker weekly live stream. I'm Paul Frazee. I will be your host. Gonna take an easy day today, for the most part. Gonna spend a little time talking about the roadmap we've got coming up, what we are planning for Beaker, as well as what is going on in the DAT project right now. And building-wise, I'm probably going to spend a little bit of time working on Beaker itself. There's a new feature that Septies has been helping me put together called the watch list that we got a few little to-dos to figure out. So I might work on the watch list. I might pull some other bugs. That's the plan for today. But I wanted to spend a little bit of time talking about what we're doing project-wise, so that people kind of know where we've been spending our time and what's coming up, because there's some pretty cool stuff on the way. So we've been sort of passing around and sharing a roadmap for the DAT project, and I'll just recap what we've got on that. First is we basically have two areas that we're working on improving in DAD right now. I don't know if we're officially going to call it DAT 2.0, but it's pretty close given how much we're updating on this. There's first of all the new networking updates, which everybody's probably seen with Hyperswarm. So we're switching to the DHT to get people connected to each other. And that's all about improving the reliability of connections so that people can get syncing with each other more reliably, which right now it's only okay, and we think it can get a lot better. So that's one area of the roadmap that we're spending time on is Hyperswarm. Along with that, we have connection level encryption that's being worked on using the noise framework, and it looks like that's going to be ready to experiment with pretty soon, which is good because that means I can work authenticated connections into peer sockets, which I'm pretty excited about. And so we'll be able to do stuff like, say I want to connect only to pfrazee.com, and the peer socket will only accept connections from whoever holds the private keys that are published on pfrazee.com, for instance. So authenticated connections and, of course, encrypted connections will be a really good feature to have in peer sockets. Pretty important. So we're pretty excited about that. So that's the network side of things, improving the connection reliability and improving, adding in authenticated connections and encrypted connections. Eventually, the authenticated connections will be able to consider putting in tools where you could have access controls on the networking layer, so that I could say that only certain people, only Macintosh is able to download this DAT, for instance. So that's also an interesting future opportunity. So on the networking side of the roadmap, secure connections with authentication and more reliable discovery. That's what we're working on there. The DAT roadmap also has work being done on the data structures that DAT uses. And so there is a project that I'm pretty sure everybody in the stream knows about. We've been talking about it and working on it for a while, and that's called a multi-writer, right? And that's the ability to have multiple people or multiple computers working together on the same data archive. And that's pretty important because you need to be able to have more than one of your devices accessing your own DATs. So I want to be able to edit pfrazy.com from my mobile phone as well as my laptop as well as my work computer. That's one of the things the multi-writer gets us, so it's pretty important. The other thing that's good for, of course, is just collaborating with people, so that you could have somebody show up and say, you know, hey, you now can edit the files in this thing as well, and we'll work together. And that's pretty good. A good example of when that's useful is like Tara and I working on Fritter, and only one of us has the publishing keys to it, so we have to ask the other person to publish the updates every time. That's a giant pain. It'd be a lot better if we could just, whoever did the work most recently could just go ahead and publish it themselves. So multi-writer is going to be pretty important for that. And, you know, it's been taking some time to get out, but we're finally closing in on it, I think. And the thing that's pretty cool is that we're not going to just get multi-writer. We're going to roll this out in stages. 3 stages is what we're planning on right now. The first one is to do all this, we have to update the internal data structures of that in a breaking fashion. So it's a breaking change, and that's why it's kind of a DAT 2.0. And so we're going to first put out that data structure without the multi-writer feature, without any change to the APIs. And that'll just actually create a performance improvement that's going to be pretty nice. Reason for that being that part of how this is being done is switching one of the internal data structures to a try index that Matthias has been working on for a while and has gotten really promising benchmarks from, so I'm really excited to find out what the final performance is like. So what should happen first is we put out this new data structure, and that should just start performing better, which is really good news. So that'll be the first stage. The second stage is going to be, we're going to add mounting, which is something we've been talking about a lot, and have decided finally, yeah, let's go ahead and do it. We're going to implement it in the data structure itself, it looks like. And mounting is basically, it's like a symlink. So if you had a data archive, let's say, you know, we're in a data archive and you got a root folder. All right, so you got right here. Let's say you have a project that you're working on that imports jQuery, right? So what you could do is create a mount that looks sort of like this, where you're saying, okay, at the folder of jQuery vendor/jQuery.com, basically embed the dat at jQuery.com, right? And you could say keep it live, so always get the latest version of jQuery.com, or you could pin it. So you could say jQuery.com at revision 100, and then it'll keep that specific version. And that'll be really great for dependency management. One useful thing about mounts. Also can be cool for services in a form of collaboration where, let's say you got a forum and there's a DAT that like manages the forum. Well, you could do something like users, and then every folder in there points to some user, right? So like users pfrazy would point to my site, right? And then anybody accessing /user/pfrazy/ you know, would actually behind the scenes be looking up pfrazy.com profile.json, but they wouldn't know that. They'd just be seeing themselves accessing a file inside the forum DAT, right? So it's a useful abstraction in terms of just making working with more DATs easier. The version pinning is really nice. Then there's one other really cool. Normally, if I had, you know, DAT, let's just say forum.com, and let's say we got 3 users on the forum, pfrazy and Macintosh. 1 lookup for pfrazy, 1 for Macintosh, and 1 for Teravansel. Now, the way that works right now, if you were to do that, you would have to join the swarm for every one of those sites, right? Because it's the peer-to-peer network. You got to find peers for each of those sites. You got to go to the DHT to do that, and then you got to download the files from each of the peers. And it's not terrible, but it's not the most efficient possibility. So what's great about a mount is that if we had datforum.com and under the users folder we've mounted the pfrazy and the Macintosh and the Teravansel thing, we can actually reduce all of those lookups to just 1 lookup, the lookup for forum.com. And then whenever you're exchanging with peers for forum.com, any mounted archives can get exchanged over the existing connections, because basically those mounted archives are kind of a part of forum.com. So you get this speed boost. There's an efficiency factor to the mounts that makes them really nice. So it's almost like 1 DAT rather than 4 DATs. And that's really important for a lot of use cases. Data, code module vendoring, right? Dependencies is a really big one for that. Because if you, I mean, think about like how node modules works, right? Whenever you npm install something and you got how many folders in there, right? Hundreds. Now, if every one of those modules had to go have their own DHT lookup, then loading a site would be brutal. It would never work. But if you mount all of those, like I'm describing, then it's only 1 DHT lookup, and then you just exchange that data with the peers for the site that you went to. So there's a really big efficiency gain with mounts. So like I said, there are 3 stages, and that's stage 2. And that's what we call one-way mount. We're still kind of figuring out the verbiage around this, but it's looking like we'll call that a one-way mount. And then finally, stage 3 is when we get multi-writer in. And I can't say for sure yet, but it's looking like what we're going to do is work multi-writer into the mounting system, so that you'll have one-way mounts, and then you'll have, I think we're going to call them overlay mounts, or maybe union mounts. So, not sure yet. But a one-way mount is what I described before, and a union mount, yeah, let's go with union mount for now, is bidirectional. Where, you know, this wouldn't be what you do, but in theory, we could take pfrazy.com and macintosh.com and mount them basically to each other, so that both of them are working together. And a lookup is done by looking at both of their data sets. And that way, you're still thinking always in terms of the tooling that we already have. If you wanted to create a DAT with multi-writer support, I'd create a DAT. Matthias would create a DAT. We'd give each other the keys of those DATs, the URLs of those DATs, and then we'd each mount them, and then it's done. They are now mounted together in a union fashion and coupled together. And that is how we are looking at doing multi-writer, is through the union mount concept. You can do it at subfolders, so similar to the mounts. We could do, you know, if I, for some reason, wanted the forum to be able to write to my site, I could do a union mount and set myself as a subfolder of the forum archive, going back to that earlier example. So I hope that all makes some amount of sense. So that's the roadmap right now for DAT. It's network improvements where we're getting connection encryption with authentication, which is basically a fancy way of saying it's like we're adding SSL more or less, but we're not using SSL, we're using a protocol called noise. We're getting faster, more reliable connection lookups. That's part of the roadmap. We are getting a faster internal data structure to DAT. We're getting one-way mounts, and we're getting union mounts, which adds multi-rider. So that's everything that's in the pipeline right now for DAT itself. No timeline on any of that, but I think probably, hopefully in the not too, I mean, we're already in the process of deploying Hyperswarm, still finishing a few things, but that's coming along pretty quickly. And it's really, a lot of the code is already written for all of this that I described, which is great. And it's really just about the finishing touches. And, 80% of the work is done, and the remaining 80% is all that's left. So it'll take a little time. But Michael's asking if you can break the unions. Don't know yet. We'll find out. I don't know yet. I think the plan is yes, but last we talked about it, I think what we concluded was if you were to break the union, what you would actually want to do is have both sides freeze the sequence number that they're mounted to, so that basically they turn the other one into a read-only, so that it can't make writes anymore, so that you don't lose any data, and then you just keep moving forward with the one that's broken off being frozen. You could take it out entirely, but then you basically have to, as the person breaking the union, you have to decide what data to keep and what to not keep, and so it might just be easier to just freeze the other one, and then it's effectively the same thing. But we'll see. Could also handle it by breaking the union and copying over to the DAT that you have. You could copy over any data you want and rewrite it after breaking the union. So I'm going to give you a soft yes that you can break unions. That's what it's looking like. So that's all the DAT protocol roadmap. Let's talk a little bit about the Beaker verse roadmap. So DAT obviously is a big part of what we do. But there's also all the tooling around DAT that integrates into Beaker, and so this is Beaker itself, as well as Hashbase and any other tool that we make. And so we're coming up, hopefully, I want to say this week, we're going to be able to release 08 of Beaker. And that's going to finally include the improved authoring tools, which I'm pretty excited about, with the preview mode and all that. So we're going to keep on making usability improvements with Beaker. And everybody, I think, has been seeing the sort of protocol or standard spec sort of work that I've been trying to work on lately with, as you've seen, the DAT identities spec that I've been floating around. There's the, of course, stuff like pure sockets or the DAT pub key file, so new APIs, new specs and stuff like that that are going to be sort of, that's all under a category of adding capabilities, adding features, and making the stack for building peer-to-peer apps better, right? So, yeah, it's looking like in that category with Beaker, it's going to be, new APIs, new features. It's going to be peer sockets and identities and encryption are the three features that I'm looking at for sure. I'm also messing around a little bit trying to come up with ways to deal with data semantics, but I'm not going to get into that for now. So that's area number one of the Beaker roadmap. Area number two is, area number one is improving capabilities, and again, that'll be pure sockets, that'll be encryption and identities. And then we're going to have put some effort into improving the sort of short-term usefulness of all these tools, and basically spend a little time bridging to HTTP a little bit better. Because we've been getting a lot of feedback that people really want to be able to have their DAT sites work on HTTP. which is a very understandable thing to want. And the more that I've been using the tools myself, the more I've been feeling that. Because you never just want to publish to DAT. You usually want to publish your site to HTTP as well. And if you're using peer-to-peer features, ideally, they would all work even if you were on HTTP. Now, I don't think we can pull that off. We'll find out how much we can do. But the plan is to at least refine the publishing experience so that people who are getting into Beaker and DAT right now can get something really specific out of it, and that is a really good website publishing experience. So we have the make peer-to-peer awesome prong of Beaker, and we have the make Beaker and its tool set great for publishing websites. So like the long-term thinking and the stuff that's exciting and unique, as well as the near-term utility. And so that's going to mean basically beefing up the gateway tools, beefing up like Hashbase. I want to make Hashbase easier to self-deploy. I want to finally get custom domains done. That's something that people have been asking for a long time, and I just need to get it done. I think it also would be a good idea to get some of the work that Ranger Mauve has been doing on the DAT archive gateway and integrate that into Hashbase so that you can use the DAT archive API on HTTP and just basically have those calls go to the gateway for you so that you can deploy on both HTTP and DAT and be able to have it work. But probably what will happen is that it'll just be like you have a read-only version of the DAT. So yeah, custom domains, a read-only version of the DAT archive API, easier to self-deploy. Maybe also finding ways to integrate Hashbase's web APIs into the browser so that you can go through the entire publishing experience without having to log in. We'll see about that. I want to do it. I've done work on it, but it makes me a little squeamish still to do that integration. So I gotta make sure that I feel really good about it if I'm gonna stand behind it. So that's the roadmap. Improvements to DAT's networking, improvements to DAT performance and feature set, including mounts and multi-writer. New web APIs for connecting peer-to-peer with peer sockets, encryption APIs and identity APIs, and then custom domains on Hashbase and a DAT archive sort of polyfill. That's sort of the roadmap for the Beakerverse. And I think after this 08 release of Beaker comes out, I'm going to be focusing on the Hashbase stuff first, because I really think that now is a good time to get the near-term utility of these tools in a really good place so that we can say to folks, you know, the peer-to-peer stuff is where it's at. But if you're not so much into that, but you just want to be able to have the best possible tool set for making websites, Beaker and Hashbase is your jam. Moritz is asking about mobile devices. What's the roadmap plan for that? I wish I could say that we did have something on the roadmap, but we don't, because we just don't have the resources for it yet. We really would need to have a lot more money in our pockets and a larger team to hit mobile, and we just don't yet. So we're just not gonna be able to do mobile for a little bit. All right, so feel free to ask any other questions about the roadmap, but I am going to jump into a little code. So let's see. Leonardo asks, how's the project funding? Who's working in Beaker, and any effort invested to increase the support? Yeah, there actually is some good progress in that front that I can't really talk about right now. But we are making headway in terms of getting ourselves funded. So as soon as there's something that I can talk about, I definitely will. Okay, so I've been working on this feature with Septies, which is called the watch list. Let me think. Am I going to be able to? Yeah, that seems like a good time to work on. Well, is it? I got about 30 minutes. I'm going to keep this stream to an hour today. And the work that I have to do on the watch list, ooh, fix that. Why don't I just fix some bugs? I'm just going to fix some bugs. Starting with this. But first I need to get into the right branch. Yeah, all right. So bug number one is that prompt to check out the new Explore page, and it really should not be breaking like that. So it should be a quick one, a little bit of a CSS problem. Michael asked if Electron 3 is on master, and it is, which I am so excited about. And I just can't stop saying enough good things about the Electron team. They have been incredible throughout all of this, and they work really hard. And we benefit a lot from it. So I am really thankful for everything they do, and really excited to say that, yes, we have the Electron 3, and process level sandboxing is restored, which is a pretty good thing, because that just is another layer of security, which we ought to have, and now we got it. Okay, it's not a flex wrap problem. Does this have a max width on it? Why does it feel like it needs to wrap? Yeah, does everybody know what the process level sandbox is? Should I spend a moment to explain what that is? I think I talked about it not that long ago. Okay, why is this thing wrapping? Could do that. We'll go with that. There shouldn't be some kind of width constraint here. There's no max width. That's just, yeah. Alright. We'll just white space no wrap it. Okay, here's another bug to address. The caching has gotten really aggressive once I landed Electron 3, and I don't know why. But suddenly, if I don't have the disable cache on in the dev tools, new things do not show up correctly. Don't know why. Let's commit that fix. Alright. So I'm guessing that there is a caching header that I can say don't cache. And I want to find out what that header is and see if that changes this thing I've been experiencing. HTTP no cache header. Cache control, no cache. Let's give it a shot. I don't necessarily want to get rid of caching in the Beaker protocol, but I gotta find out why this is happening, because it's also happening in DAT sites, where it should be that a refresh gives me a new asset, but for some reason the caching is really aggressive. And that's no good. That's going to confuse people. Moritz asks, is there a way to host Node or React apps using Hashbase? So I'm guessing with the React part, you're referring to like React in the back end. But your Node question is pretty clear. Not yet. And we have an idea that it would be really neat to have DATs that can basically provide backend JavaScript, and then the browser would offer for the user, hey, where do you want to run this JavaScript? You know, like there's a backend component to this application, and you know, it's like you're installing the application. It's like, okay, you can run a server here. You have your own computer. You have that server in your closet. You have a Hashbase account. These all can run this JavaScript, this server JavaScript. Where would you like to run it? And you could instantiate the JavaScript in one of those locations, and just like that, you have like a Node script running, which I think would be really cool. If you could have apps that like let you instantiate backends as the user wherever you want. And then it'd be like Hashbase is like a services management system for you, in addition to everything else it does. I think that'd be really fun. And since you can, you know, it's be a generic sort of JavaScript execution environment, it's almost like Dockerizing, but from like a webby sense, because it's JavaScript, and of course WebAssembly could be used as well. I think that could be really cool. So maybe that's like, you know, we kind of need to prove out more. Like, it's one of those things where, yeah, that would be really sweet. We can't do that yet. But maybe at some point when we're like, okay, sweet, everything's going great. What other good ideas do we got? We'll pick that one back up. Because I think that would be really cool. All right. So let's see if the caching is still being aggressive. Yeah, wouldn't that be great? Okay, so the header's there. Good. Let's make a small change to the start. Let's do... Wow. Now it changes. Huh. Okay, I think that the no cache directive worked, because at least it is changing now. Not always as fast as I feel like it should, but yeah, okay, it changed. And just to confirm that that no cache header is doing what I think it is, let's turn it off and try again. Yeah, okay, so that no cache header is actually having an effect. Huh, I wonder if like so this started whenever I bumped to Electron 3, which sort of suggests that the caching is just more aggressive by default, maybe. Oh, there it goes. What the heck? Huh. It's a pretty tricky situation when the changes you make to code don't show up when you refresh. I can't just let this continue as is. Now it's working. Well, let me confirm this for dat sites. Let's just do it. Oh, okay. Well, that's refreshing as expected. Okay. I'm kind of baffled, but I guess I'm just not going to worry about it. We'll have to keep an eye out for this. Oh, there it goes. What the heck? Yeah, I just changed the like specifically seems to be style sheets that they're not refreshing. They're not changing whenever you refresh. Is there some kind of... Oh, you know what? I do have caching headers on it. Okay, it's doing what it's supposed to. I'm surprised that hasn't come up before. That's ridiculous. 60. So I wonder if that means after 60 seconds it will actually update itself. Well, we can test that in a second, but this is thankfully pretty easy to fix. I just need to head over to Beaker core and change the caching headers, definitely for the preview. DATs themselves shouldn't have this problem because the DATs themselves are able to use the sequence numbers as an e-tag. Okay, so library. Looks like what I need to do is, lucky enough, I was able to use the same code for almost everything in the preview as well as the actual DAT by just wrapping everything in a oh, we're not using e-tags right now. I need to get around to re-enabling that. Okay, so so caching is just a little bit of a problem right now. How do I want to deal with that? if I go ahead and re-enable e-tags on the DAT content, then I just need to detect what if it's a preview and do no cache. So let's do that because I ought to be using these e-tags anyway. So e-tags are basically a way to mark the version of content that you're serving, and then you can the code can basically the browser is able to send along the e-tag with the request, and then you say, oh, nope, that you already have the right version, no changes. And previously it seemed that I had problems. Okay, and syntax error, line 329. Don't forget your commas, folks. All right, so let's first check the header. It should be sending down the no cache directive. Yep, that's good. Which means that if I were to change the CSS of my example to green and I refresh, it'll boom. Bug mostly fixed. Now we just need to find out if DATs are working correctly. So first of all, let's just go to an existing DAT, like my website, and take a look at those e-tags. Whoa, what happened there? Oh, well, really? Yeah. So remember when I said that improving the reliability of the network is on the roadmap? This is why. Lately, not even Hashbase has been 100% reliably connecting. Don't know why that is. Alright, how about the Beaker browser side? What is that about? Wow. Some lag in the input. Really? Nothing's gonna work? Huh. Wonder what that's about. I wonder if our discovery network is down. Sure acted like it. Oh, even weirder. Huh. What is this about? Because I'm connected to 2 peers, and I can't open the site. Now that's interesting. No errors in the log. 2 peers connected. Connections were established. Did the change I just made totally hose? It did. Okay. Wow, that's funny. Okay. The discovery network isn't down. My change is bad. That's funny. Okay. Good grief. What a funny way for that bug to show itself. Okay, entry.content.blockOffset doesn't exist. I wonder, that must be just old enough code that... Okay. Let's try just block offset. Because it said Beaker B because I hit enter too quickly and went to dat Beaker B. My computer really performs poorly whenever I'm doing the live stream because a good, I'd say about 20% of the CPU at least is dedicated to the streaming itself. So everything slows down pretty bad. It's pretty old MacBook Air, so not surprising. Tell you what, I'm glad I wrote the swarm debugger. That paid off. Okay. There's byte offset, there's blocks. It's just offset. Okay. Oh, shoot. Okay, let's check that cache header. .804. Okay. And And so what should happen is etag block 4, and if I make a change and publish it, it should become etag block 5. Sweet. Okay, that fixes caching in the new Beaker. I'm going to go ahead and turn off caching in Beaker. Michael is saying it looks like even though the input itself was updating fast enough, the autocomplete wasn't. It was hanging on an old list of results when you hit enter. That is what I think is happening as well. I've kind of known about that for a while, just haven't gotten around to solving it. It definitely needs to, you know, some of the results in the autocomplete can lag, but the manual entered URL cannot, because that's why you end up typing in something manually, hitting enter, and it doesn't have all the characters input. So that's just something I gotta fix. All right, I think I'm going to wrap it up then. Thanks for joining me, everybody. Hope you have a good rest of your weekend. As always, you can find me online, Twitter, IRC, email, and GitHub. So thanks for joining me, and I will see you all next week. Have a good one.